HOA. Karen tried to arrest my wife. She didn't know. She was the county sheriff. She showed up with papers in her hand, acting like she owned the street, like she owned my house, like she owned my life. She shouted that word again, arrest. And my wife just smiled, not angry, not scared, just calm. What that HOA Karen didn't know was what she had just walked into. And when the patrol cars finally arrived, her face changed forever. Would you have stayed calm or lost it right there on the spot? What's up, everyone? Welcome to HOA Stories, the place where real suburban nightmares come to life. I'm Mike, a regular guy, living in a quiet neighborhood in Arizona, working a basic property maintenance job, paying my taxes, mowing my lawn, keeping to myself, until I married the wrong woman, or maybe the right one, depending how you see it. Because my wife isn't just any wife, she's the county sheriff, and the HOA hated her before they even knew her. If you're tired of power-hungry HOAs, if you've ever been harassed over a mailbox, or grass color, or trash day, this channel is for you. Subscribe, because this one gets wild, real wild. And comment, BOO HOA, if you're ready to see how this ends, and share this with someone who hates HOAs as much as you do. Now let me tell you what really happened, the day they tried to arrest my wife. I still remember the knock, not because it was loud, but because it felt heavy, like someone knocking on your life, not your door. It was a Tuesday, one of those boring, quiet suburban mornings, birds chirping, sprinklers ticking, neighbors pretending to be happy. I was in the kitchen, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, scrolling through messages. When I heard it, 3 hard knocks, no pause, no respect, just power. I already knew, before I even opened the door, who it was. You just feel it, when HOA energy comes near your house. When I opened the door, there she was, that Karen look, tight smile, cold eyes, sunglasses bigger than her heart. Next to her, 2 men, green shirts, HOA inspector, like they were mall cops, but with ego. And behind them, that bald one, the loud one, the one who always wanted to feel important. She didn't even say good morning, no hello, no name. She just looked past me into my house like she owned the floor and said, "Sir, you're in violation, multiple violations." I blinked, didn't even respond, just waited. Because with HOA people, you never interrupt. You let them hang themselves with words. Your trash bin was visible after 9:04 a.m. She continued, and your lawn edges are inconsistent. Also, your vehicle has been parked on the street for more than 3 hours. I smiled a little, not to be smart, but because it was funny. They were talking like my house was a prison block. I said, "Ma'am, my trash day is today. The truck hasn't even passed yet, and my car battery is dead." She didn't care. They never do. She shook her papers, like it gave her power. "You have 24 hours to comply, or we will issue fines and possible legal action." Before I could even answer, she stepped closer, crossed my personal space. And that's when my wife stepped into view. Behind me, just coming down the hallway, still in her casual clothes. Not uniform, not badge. Just my wife, calm, neutral, eyes sharp. The HOA. Karen looked at her, top to bottom, judging, calculating. And something in her smile changed. "Oh," she said, "so this is the woman." My wife raised her eyebrow. This was the first second where I knew this wasn't going to be a normal HOA interaction. Because when Karen looked at her, I saw something dangerous. Not anger, not fear. Jealousy. And jealousy mixed with power is explosive in suburban neighborhoods. She stepped closer, lowered her voice, trying to sound dominant. "Ma'am, you need to advise your husband before things get serious. We don't want law enforcement involved." She smirked, like it was a threat. And my wife just smiled, a small one, the calm one, the one she gets, before storms. I didn't say anything, I just watched. Because I knew they had no idea who she really was. And right there, standing on my porch, in front of my house, with neighbors quietly watching from cracked blinds, the HOA. Karen made the biggest mistake of her life. She pointed at my wife and said, "Do you even understand the consequences of standing against the HOA?" And my wife slowly crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe, and then said something so calm, so simple, so dangerous. "Please continue. I'm listening." That's when the bald HOA guy laughed, like he had power. He stepped forward, pointed at me, and shouted, "You people think you're above the rules, but we can get you arrested. You hear me?" He said arrested with pride, like it was candy. And my wife tilted her head, just a little, like she was watching a child play with a grenade. I looked at her, sure frozen, because I already saw where this was going. And I want to ask you, if you were in my place, standing there with your house, your wife, your peace on the line, would you tell the HOA who says he really is, or would you let them keep digging their own hole? The knock came again the next morning. Not loud, not polite, just sharp enough to say, "I'm not here to ask, I'm here to command." I opened the door slowly, and there she stood again, clipboard hugged to her chest like a weapon, sunglasses still hiding those judgmental eyes, lips pressed tight like she'd been holding in the same breath since the Nixon administration. Behind her, 2 HOA board members this time, back up, like I was some criminal mastermind over a lawn gnome. "Good morning," she said, fake smile already loaded. "I'm here to issue a formal violation notice." "Already?" I replied, leaning on the doorframe. "You just threatened me yesterday." She clicked her pen. "Oh, I don't threaten, sir. I document." She flipped the clipboard around. Bright red letters. HOA violation notice. Final warning. I almost laughed. Almost. "For what?" I asked. She adjusted her glasses and started reading like a robot. Unauthorized landscaping modifications, improper fence coloring, failure to comply with community aesthetic standards, and illegal drainage redirection. I blinked slowly. Illegal drainage redirection? "Yes," she smirked, pointing her pen toward my backyard. "Your recent yard construction is interfering with the HOA's approved water flow." I turned around and looked back at the muddy mess from last week's flood. "The entire block was underwater," I said. "I had to do something. My wife nearly slipped. Personal issues do not supersede community guidelines," she snapped. Her helper, a skinny older man, nodded like a puppet. I felt my jaw tighten. "You mean your guidelines?" I replied. She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "We mean standards that keep property value from crashing, because of people like you." Silence. Pure, heavy silence. For a second, I felt the same anger again. The one that rises behind your ribs and burns the rough your chest. But I didn't explode. Instead, I smiled. "All right," I said calmly. "So what's the fine?" Her mouth twitched. She loved this part. She flipped another page. $2,000, due within 7 days. Behind her, one of the neighbors gasped. My heart dropped. Not because of the money, but because I knew. This wasn't about pipes or paint. This was about power, and she was addicted to it. "You can't be serious," I said. "Oh, I'm very serious," she replied. "Failure to pay will result in legal action and possible property seizure under HOA bylaws." There it was, the threat. That ugly little power flex they love to make. I stared at her. Behind her glasses, I could tell. She was enjoying this. "There's a hearing process, right?" I asked. She nodded smugly. 2 weeks from now, but be warned, the board rarely overturns its own decisions. Of course they don't. Why would kings question their own throne? She turned to leave, but paused at the edge of my porch. "And one more thing," she added, tapping her pen again. "Yes?" "You might want to tell your wife to stop giving us dirty looks when she leaves for work. It makes the community feel unsafe." I felt it. That twitch inside me. "You followed my wife?" I asked slowly. She didn't answer, just smiled, then walked away. I closed the door, and that's when my hands started shaking. Not from fear, from the fact that she just crossed a line she didn't even see. That night, my wife came home late, exhausted, uniform still on, her badge hanging loose from her belt. I didn't even mention the fine at first. I just watched her kick off her boots and collapse onto the couch. Long day, longer face. I sat beside her. "Babe," I said carefully, "have you had any weird encounters with the HOA lately?" She sighed. Her eyes closed for a moment like she'd been holding in something heavy. "That woman?" she muttered. "She's been parked down the street sometimes." I slowly turned my head. "Parked? How?" "Just sitting there," she said. "Car off, watching." My throat went dry. "She came today," I told her. "Fine, 2,000 and some other garbage." Her eyes opened instantly. Sharp now. Focused. She didn't touch you, did she? I shook my head. No, but she made some comments about you. My wife sat upright. What kind of comments? About you making the community feel unsafe. A muscle ticked in her jaw. Unsafe? She repeated. That's funny. Something changed in the room, the air, the temperature. I'd seen that look before, right before she walked into dangerous situations. You want to know the funniest part? She continued. She has no idea who she's talking to. I swallowed. You want to tell me? I asked. She looked at me, a slow, tired smile forming. No, not yet. 2 days later, the fine notice spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. People started whispering. Some of them stopped waving. Some of them closed their doors faster, like I was contagious. And guess who was walking around like she owned the whole street? Heard. Clipboard. Coffee. Sunglasses. She knocked on 3 more doors, laughing with some neighbors, threatening others, collecting power like rent. But every time she glanced at my house, her smile turned tighter, like she wanted to make an example out of me, and maybe she planned to. What she didn't know was, the hearing was coming. My wife was already preparing something, and her clipboard was about to feel very, very small. The HOA building smelled like fake polish and old carpet. You know that smell, like someone sprayed lemon cleaner on stress. I hated it. I hated the white walls, the cheap fake plants, the motivational posters about community harmony. Nothing about that place felt like harmony. It felt like power, and it felt like it was designed to make people feel small. We walked in 5 minutes early. My wife didn't say much on the way, just drove. Hands steady on the wheel, eyes forward. She wasn't wearing her uniform. Not yet. Just simple jeans, a dark jacket, hair pulled back. Anyone looking at her would think she was just another tired homeowner dragging her husband to some boring meeting. Not a single person in that building had any idea what she really was, and that was the point. Inside, about 15 people sat in folding chairs, some with files, some with coffee, some just angry. HOA victims. You could see it in their faces. Tired eyes, tight shoulders, forced patience. Then I saw her, HOA Karen, sitting at the front table. Perfect posture, perfect fake smile. She wore a beige blazer like she was going to court, heels clicking against the floor. She loved this little stage, and when she saw us, her smile grew sharper, like a knife pretending to be friendly. "Good morning," she said loudly, so the whole room could hear. "Here for the hearing, I suppose?" "No," my wife replied calmly. "We're here for the truth." Karen let out a tiny laugh. "Oh, honey, this is the truth. On paper." She tapped a thick folder, my name written on it, big letters, like they were proud. The board members filed in, 4 of them, 2 men, 2 women, all over 50, all dressed like they were attending a church brunch. They sat down, cleared throats, clicked pens, and just like that, they started. "Case number 17B, the chairman announced. He didn't even look at me. Just read. Unauthorized alterations to property drainage and repeated community aesthetic violations. He kept reading, word after word, statement after statement, making me sound like some reckless criminal, like I tried to destroy the neighborhood on purpose. I wanted to interrupt, to shout, to correct them, but my wife gently touched my knee, just once. A signal. Stay calm. Let them talk. Let them dig. Karen stood up when her turn came. She walked to the center, like she practiced this. Every step measured, every breath controlled. "This homeowner," she said, pointing at me, "has a history of non-compliance." History. Like I'd done this for years. This recent issue with water drainage has affected surrounding properties and violated at least 4 HOA codes. She held up photos, pictures of my yard after the flood. Muddy, damaged, broken sections. She twisted the story, made it look like I caused the flood, not the storm, not their terrible drainage planning, but me. I clenched my jaw. She kept going. "And when I attempted to communicate," she continued, I experienced hostility and disrespect. He even implied that the HOA had no real authority. Some people in the chairs gasped. Karen loved that. Loved the drama. Loved being the victim with power. "Your response?" the chairman said, finally looking at me. I stood up, heart beating, sweat on my palms. But I didn't speak fast. I spoke slow, clear. "Sir," I began. "My lawn flooded because the HOA-approved drainage couldn't handle a normal storm. My wife fell on that walkway. I fixed it so no one else would get hurt." Karen rolled her eyes. "But instead of help," I continued, "I got threatened, fined, and humiliated in front of my neighbors." The room went quiet. You could hear someone's coffee cup shake. "And you have proof?" one of the BOO HOA women asked. "I do," I said. I gestured to my wife. Everyone turned to her. She stood up slowly, calm, face unreadable. Just another homeowner. Karen barely glanced, still smiling, like she thought this was cute. My wife walked to the front. She didn't rush. She didn't look nervous. She simply pulled out a folder, thicker than Karen's. "May I speak?" she asked. The chairman nodded. "Go ahead." She opened it. Photos, documents, reports. She placed them down one by one. "These," she said, "are storm reports filed by the county. These show drainage failures in this block over the last 6 years." The board members leaned in, curious now. Karen's smile started thinning. "These," she continued, "are inspection requests submitted to the HOA that were ignored." She slid emails across, printed, dated, signed. Karen shifted in her seat. "And this one," my wife lifted another document, "is a warning issued to your board last year by the county about flood risks." Silence. Thick silent. The kind that makes your ears feel full. Karen's fingers tightened around her pen. "That's not relevant today," Karen snapped. "This case is about his actions." My wife slowly looked at her and smiled. A tiny smile. The calm one. "It's relevant when you ignore safety and then punish someone for protecting their family." Karen scoffed. "And who are you exactly?" she asked. "A contractor? A lawyer? A relative with opinions?" My wife didn't answer. Not yet. Just looked at the board, then back at Karen, then at the room. "Not yet," she said softly. "I'm just a homeowner today." A ripple of confused whispers moved around. Karen laughed, relieved. "Oh, good," she said. "Then stay in your lane." Big mistake. Huge. I could feel it. The air changed, like thunder about to break. The chairman cleared his throat. "We will need time to review this evidence." He looked at Karen. "Until then, the fine will be put on temporary hold." Her head snapped up. "Excuse me?" she said fast. "For how long?" Another board member added. "Until the next session," he replied. 2 weeks. Karen's nails tapped hard against the table. She didn't like losing control, not even half control. As the session ended, people started getting up. Whispers everywhere. Some neighbors came over quietly, saying sorry, saying good luck. Karen didn't move. She stayed seated, watching us, eyes cold. As we walked out, she followed, her heels clicking fast now. Angry rhythm. She caught up to us near the doors. "You think you're smart," she said quietly. So prepared, so confident. My wife stopped, turned around, just slightly. Karen moved closer, lowered her voice. "You don't even know how much power I have," she muttered. "I can make your life very uncomfortable." My wife didn't step back, didn't blink, just stared at her. Calm, level, almost pitying. Then she said, "You already did," and started walking again, leaving Karen standing there, frozen, not because of fear, but because something in her felt wrong, like a door had just closed, and she didn't know which side she was on. And now I want to ask you, if someone in power was treating you like this, would you expose them immediately, or wait a little longer, and let them destroy themselves first? His sirens didn't scream. They glowed, low and steady, just loud enough to send a message without making it obvious. The HOA inspector didn't notice at first. He was still too busy trying to hold on to his last bit of authority, the kind of fake power that only works when people are scared. His jaw was tight, his chest puffed out. He was still trying to look like the man in control, but control was already gone. My wife stood on the porch, sunlight brushing across her shoulders like the world itself had chosen a side. It made her look untouchable, not dramatic, not emotional, just solid, like a wall they could yell at forever and never break through. "You're still trespassing," the inspector snapped, "and you're interfering with an official HOA enforcement procedure." She didn't even blink. "No," she said calmly. "You're standing on private property after being told to leave 3 times. That's harassment now." His eyebrows furrowed. He forced a laugh. "Oh, please. You think throwing legal words at me makes you a lawyer now?" Her head tilted slightly, almost like she found him amusing. That annoyed him more than any insult ever could. "I don't need to be a lawyer," she replied. "I just need to know the law better than you." Behind him, one of his officers shifted uncomfortably. The same guy who'd been whispering into his radio earlier now looked like he wanted to melt into the driveway. But the inspector didn't catch that. "What law?" he scoffed. "HOA law? Because I've been doing this for 12 years. I know it better than some housewife playing tough at the door." Silence hit the porch. Not the quiet kind, the dangerous kind. It was the word housewife that did it. Not because it insulted her, but because it showed him just how wrong he already was. A faint wind moved through the street. Tree leaves rustled. A dog barked far away. Then she took one step forward. Not aggressive, not threatening, just enough to close the distance. "You should have done your homework," she said softly, "before stepping on my property." He hesitated for the first time. "What homework?" he asked. She calmly pulled out her phone. No anger, no rush, just precision. She tapped once, then turned the screen toward him. On it was a digital badge, county seal, department insignia. His eyes locked onto it, and his face drained. "What is that?" he muttered. Behind him the 2 officers leaned to see. Their expressions changed immediately. Shock, recognition, fear. One of them straightened his back like he'd just been struck by electricity. "That's," he whispered. "Sir, that's law enforcement credentials." The inspector swallowed hard. But she's the new county sheriff," the officer cut in, voice shaking. The street seemed to freeze. You could hear birds hanging in the air. Even the wind paused. The inspector blinked, processing like a broken computer. "No," he scoffed weakly. "That's not true. I'd know if she was appointed last month," my wife said calmly. "Internal transfer, quiet announcement, because I don't like attention." His mouth opened. Nothing came out. For the first time since he arrived, he had no script, no power play, no threats, just reality. Down the street, the police cruiser rolled closer, now fully visible. Sunlight flashed off its windshield. Its presence wasn't for show. It wasn't for intimidation. It was for documentation. The inspector tried to regroup, straightening his shoulders again like a puppet remembering its role. "Well, sheriff or not, this is HOA business. We operate independently from local law enforcement," he said quickly. "You can't just interfere because you're offended." She almost smiled. Wrong again. She lowered her phone and stepped slightly to the side so the camera on the approaching cruiser could see everything clearly. "You can operate independently," she said, "until you cross state property laws, trespassing rules, harassment policies, and intimidated a resident on private land." He opened his mouth. She held up one finger. "And just so we're clear, you're on private property, recorded, after being warned, with witnesses." Both HOA officers immediately stepped back, slowly, like they'd just realized the floor was lava. The inspector's breathing changed, fast, tight, uneven. "But you never announced you were—" "I don't have to announce who I am to be protected by the law," she cut him off. "That's the difference between power and professionalism." The police cruiser finally pulled up to the curb. The officer inside didn't jump out, didn't rush. He just sat there for a moment, watching, assessing, letting the weight of the moment settle. The inspector turned slowly. His ego wanted to run, but his pride kept him frozen. I think this has gone far enough," he said, forcing a strained smile. "There's no need for things to escalate. We're just doing our job." She nodded. "I agree." This has gone far enough. She turned slightly, gesturing to the camera mounted above the porch. And I'll be forwarding this entire interaction to the HOA Regulatory Board, the County Oversight Committee, and the State Housing Authority. The inspector stumbled over his words. That's unnecessary. You accused me. You threatened me. You disrespected me. And you intimidated my family. Her voice didn't rise, but power filled it anyway. That makes this very necessary. The officer in the cruiser stepped out now, calm, controlled. Ma'am, he nodded. Sarge, she replied smoothly. The inspector's knees almost buckled, because in one moment, his authority didn't just disappear. It turned against him, and the whole neighborhood was watching. Windows, porches, homes held up. All his years of intimidation, now recorded, documented, stored, and just getting started. The inspector didn't move. Neither did the air. The entire street felt like it was holding its breath as reality finally caught up to him. The police cruiser's door shut softly behind the officer as he stepped closer, not rushing, not trying to be dramatic, just present, calm, controlled. The kind of calm that makes guilty people sweat more than shouting ever could. The HOA inspector swallowed. He'd know that stance anywhere. He'd stared at it from the other side for years. When someone in uniform wasn't here to argue, they were here to document. You want me to take statements? The officer asked. My wife gave a single nod. Yes, she replied. And make sure you log his badge number, his name, and the company he represents. The inspector's eyes snapped wide. Ma'am, this is a misunderstanding, he said quickly now, trying to find a door to escape from. There's no need to escalate. We'll just leave. She raised her palm. He stopped immediately. The power shift wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was precise. You don't decide when this ends, she said calmly. You decided to make this public when you walked up here with witnesses and threats. Silence again. Except now, people were recording. Phones lifted. Neighbors who normally only peeked through blinds now stood openly on driveways. The same community he'd bullied for years was watching him shrink. The police officer pulled out a small notepad. Sir, I need your ID and your work credentials. The inspector hesitated. He looked at my wife again, like maybe she'd save him. She didn't. Not this time. Not after the way he'd spoken. Not after the way he'd tried to humiliate her. Slowly, reluctantly, he pulled out his wallet. His hands were shaking now, not with anger, but with something far worse. Fear of consequences. The officer wrote everything down, then looked up. And you were instructed to leave the property. Yes, my wife replied. How many times? 3, she answered. Clearly, on this recording, with witnesses. She pointed at the porch camera above them. The officer nodded. He didn't need more. Down the street, 2 more patrol cars rolled in. Not dramatic, not with sirens, just a quiet presence. Authority doesn't scream when it arrives. It just appears. The inspector's chest rose and fell sharply. You're making this bigger than it needs to be, he muttered. No, she corrected him. You made it bigger when you forgot people have rights. Behind him, his 2 officers stepped even farther back, like they were afraid his stupidity was contagious. The second patrol car parked. A woman officer stepped out and walked up beside my wife. Ma'am, she said respectfully, do you want us to remove them? My wife looked at her, then back at the inspector. For a second, his body language almost begged. Not with words, but with silence. Not yet, she said. His posture collapsed slightly. Why? The officer asked. Because I want them to hear what accountability sounds like first. The inspector's jaw clenched. She stepped forward one last time, standing one stair above him now. Not towering, just enough to remind him that elevation isn't always physical. You came here today thinking you could scare a homeowner, she said, voice quiet, piercing. You thought wearing a shirt and holding a clipboard meant people owed you respect. He couldn't respond. You forgot something important, she continued. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned, and you burned yours in front of an entire street. The neighbors didn't cheer, they didn't shout, but you could feel it. They felt safer. Someone across the road even softly whispered, "About time." The inspector heard it. That hurt worse than sirens. And you also forgotten with other thing, she added. His eyes lifted slowly. She looked him dead in the face. You don't need a badge to have power. The silence hit again, heavier. Sometimes, she said, all you need is the law and the courage to stand still. She stepped back and nodded at the officer. Now. They gently guided the HOA group away. No handcuffs, no drama, just removal. The way bullies lose power, not by force, but by exposure. As they walked down the driveway, the inspector didn't even fight it. Because for the first time, he wasn't dealing with someone scared. He was dealing with consequences. The street slowly returned to normal. Cars passed, birds chirped again. But something had changed, because everyone had seen it. The myth of HOA power had cracked, and the truth was standing calmly on the porch. My wife turned toward me then, and smiled warmly, as if none of this had ever been heavy to her. Guess they won't be back, I said. She chuckled softly. They might, she replied. But next time, they'll bring respect. And with that, she walked back inside, leaving behind a quiet street, a shattered ego, and a lesson nobody there would forget. What would you do if someone tried to bully you on your own property? Would you stay quiet or stand your ground like her? Comment below and tell me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who hates HOA abuse. I thought it was over. I really did. I thought once they walked away in shame, once the police wrote things down, once the whole street watched it happen, they'd finally crawl back into whatever hole HOA people come from. But that's the thing about power. When it starts to die, it doesn't disappear quietly, it fights back. The next morning, I woke up to a strange silence outside. No dogs barking, no leaf blowers, no old man yelling at clouds, just stillness, the wrong kind. I stepped toward the window, pulled the curtain slightly, and that's when I saw it. 2 black SUVs parked at the corner of the street. Not police, not HOA patrol. Something else. Clean, expensive, corporate. I felt it in my chest. Something was coming. Behind me, my wife was already dressed, buttoning her cuffs, calm as always. Let me guess, she said, without even looking. They're not here to apologize. I didn't answer, because deep down, I already knew. Around noon, it happened. A knock, not aggressive, not weak, just controlled. I opened the door. 2 men stood there in fitted suits, no name tags, no clipboards, just polished shoes and fake smiles. Good afternoon, one said. I'm Mr. Callahan from the HOA legal department. The word legal carried weight. Not power, but weight. And behind him, a woman stepped forward, tablet in hand, perfect hair, perfect posture, perfect corporate smile. We're here to discuss an incident reported yesterday, she said. Incident. Funny how bullies always change names once they lose. Discuss? My wife asked as she stepped beside me, arms folded. Their smiles twitched. Yes, Callahan continued. There have been complaints about an inappropriate involvement of law enforcement. The silence that followed felt sharp. Inappropriate? She repeated. Yes, ma'am, the woman replied. Our board believes things escalated unnecessarily. Unnecessarily. My jaw tightened. The same people who sent threats, who tried to intimidate, who tried to take control, now wanted to rewrite the story. Typical. So what do you want? My wife asked calmly. Callahan tapped something on his tablet, then held it up slightly. We're offering a formal settlement, he said. A mutual agreement to move forward. No legal action, no further disturbance. We'll even waive this year's HOA fees. Waive fees. For them, that was like handing out gold, but not for her. She looked at them like she was examining a child who just lied badly. You want to buy silence, she said. They laughed slightly. No, Callahan replied. We want unity, harmony. We represent the community. She tilted her head. You represent fear, she said, and fear always wants quiet. The atmosphere shifted. Even their expensive cologne suddenly felt cheap. We could make things difficult, the woman added, softly now, less confident. That would be unwise, my wife replied. There it was again, that calm authority. No badge, no threats, just truth. Callahan cleared his throat. Look, we're trying to prevent lawsuits, bad press, things that spiral. And you think silence does that? She asked. Yes. She smiled. But not kindly. Silence is exactly what made you bold in the first place. They stopped speaking. The wind shifted, papers moved slightly in Callahan's hand. But here's your mistake, she continued. He looked up. You think yesterday was about you. He blinked. It wasn't, she said. It was about everyone who stood behind their doors afraid to answer when you knocked. The two of them exchanged glances. They felt it now. The shift. The power moving. You don't want peace, she added. You want control without consequences. I saw a muscle jump in Callahan's jaw. So what are you saying? He asked. She stepped forward. I'm saying this goes public, fully, transparent, all of it. Their fake smiles vanished. But your family, boo, he started. My family will sleep fine, she interrupted. Will yours? Silence. That's when they realized they couldn't outplay her. They never could. That evening, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Someone leaked it. The video from yesterday, the HOA threats, the confrontation, the arrival of the lawyers, all of it, and comments flooded in, not just from our street, from across town, across the county, across communities, people telling stories, HOA bullying, fines for plants, threats over paint colors, harassment over trash cans. Stories didn't stay quiet, they multiplied. And my wife, she just watched, not excited, not proud, just focused, because she knew something we didn't yet. This wasn't just one HOA anymore. This was becoming an example. And examples, they don't end peacefully. They end with change. Or fire. That night, I asked her something. Are you worried they'll come for us harder? She looked at me. Her expression soft, but serious. They already did, she said. Now they're just scared the world saw them. And as she turned off the light, I realized something. Power doesn't hate rebels. Power hates witnesses. Should we expose the HOA completely, or did we risk going too far? Drop your thoughts below and comment, "End HOA abuse," if you believe bullies should always be exposed. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was scared, not because I was nervous, but because you can feel it when something big is about to end. The house was quiet, too quiet, like the silence before a storm, or the silence after one. My wife sat at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in her hand, steam rising slowly, like the situation outside wasn't about to explode. You ready? I asked. She looked up at me, that same calm, that same steady look. I was ready the moment he pointed his finger at me, she said. I exhaled slowly. Outside, the neighborhood had changed. No HOA trucks, no clipboards, no patrol golf carts, just silence. But this time, it wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. Around 9:30 a.m., it happened. A black sedan parked near the curb, but not like before. No arrogance, no intimidation, just arrival. This time, it wasn't HOA. It was news. Local media, community reporters, independent cameras. They stood quietly, setting equipment, whispering to each other. Some neighbors stepped out, nervous, others excited, some just curious. Then, a familiar car rolled in, the same one from the station. She wasn't wearing a uniform, just a clean navy blazer, simple shirt, jeans, no badge on display, just presence. She stepped onto the lawn, and for a second, everything stopped. Even the wind. The same HOA board members stood near the sidewalk now. Not bold anymore, not loud. Smaller. The same bald inspector was there too. But he didn't speak, didn't point, didn't threaten. He just stood and waited, which, for him, was worse than punishment. A man used to control, forced into silence. My wife stepped forward. No mic, no stage, no drama, just truth. This neighborhood never needed control, she said clearly. It needed respect. Cameras zoomed. Phones went up. Children stood behind mailboxes watching. This HOA wasn't about rules. She continued. It was about power over people who didn't know how to fight back. The board members shifted uncomfortably. But power, she said, always collapses when people stop being quiet. Some of the neighbors nodded. Others just stared, like they were processing freedom. The reason I never told them who I was, she added, is because it shouldn't matter. She paused. The law isn't strong because of who carries it. It's strong because of who deserves it. The street went silent. The kind of silence that feels heavy because it's full of truth. She turned slightly toward the HOA members. "You're not being arrested today," she said. They flinched. "But you're being exposed." The bald inspector swallowed. "And what happens next?" someone in the crowd asked. She looked around. At the houses, at the families, at the people who'd stayed quiet for years. "You take control of your own community back," she said, "because the moment you stop fearing them, they disappear." She stepped back. I looked at her. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't angry, just done. By noon, the board announced resignations, all of them, every single one. Not because of law, not because of force, but because the attention, the truth, the eyes watching. Power hates light, and we lit the whole street up. That evening, the neighbors gathered. Not for HOA nonsense, not for meetings, but for a barbecue. First time in years, people laughed without worrying about complaints. Kids rode bikes without whispering. Someone played music without checking decibel rules. Freedom sounds simple. But when you've been controlled long enough, it feels impossible. Until it isn't. Later that night, we stood on the porch together. Streetlights glowing, crickets filling the air, people talking freely again. "You didn't just scare them," I told her. "You changed something." She leaned on the part, railing. "They were loud," she said, "but they weren't powerful." She looked back at the quiet street. People were just forgetting their own strength. And I realized, this wasn't just a story about an HOA. It was about what happens when bullies meet someone who doesn't flinch. If this happened on your street, would you stand up or stay quiet? Comment, "No more HOA bullies," if you'd fight back, and share this with someone who needs courage.